Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to talk about how game data is moving to the servers and becoming dynamic. How is this good and how it also makes life harder for developers of third-party tools. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons for their support of the channel and the Armory. So first let's start by talking about what happened. Prior to patch 3.19, it was possible to extract almost all data about items and locations in-game from the game files. In 3.19, we saw the first attempts to move this information to the servers. And then finally in 3.20, the information about store inventories and trade locations was completely moved to the game's servers and can't be extracted from the client anymore. Fundamentally, this is a good thing. Data being on the servers allows CIG to change the prices and locations where items are sold at any point without needing to release a new patch. It also means that item prices and shop inventories can now be fully driven by the dynamic economy when that comes online. I believe that eventually all data, meaning ship, component, and armor stats, will be moved to the servers. The other good thing about this is that in theory it decreases the size of the game download, but of course we don't see this because new stuff is being added with each patch. But the main reason this is a good thing is that data being moved to the servers means that CIG now have a service that can reliably provide this data to the game servers when the players need it. This likely is another major step towards server meshing. Combine this with the recent announcement that the replication layer will be tested in 3.21 and we can definitely see server meshing taking shape. But now let's talk about why this is bad. Essentially, every community-made third-party tool like the DPS calculator, item finder, trade tools, and the Armory use this data to give users information about where to buy items and commodities in-game. These tools are indispensable because CIG provides no official alternative and likely never will outside of data running for trading. And I know that I am biased here as a developer of one of those tools, but many backers use tools like the Armory on a daily basis. For the time being, it looks like most, if not all of these tools, including the Armory, will resort to crowdsourcing this data. For the Armory, I actually released this feature a few days ago. But we all know that crowdsourcing is unreliable and requires a lot of editing and oversight from the tool's developers. Of course, in this case I'm talking about manual crowdsourcing, where the user has to manually input the data. I will cover some other options later in the video. However, some backers think that the community has no business data mining the game to gain information because it ruins the experience of traveling around and finding out for yourself. And that's a valid point, but I would like to offer a counter-argument. If you want to discover things for yourself, that's up to you. But the problem I have is that trying to buy a specific item should not be about trial and error and spending 2 hours traveling around finding different shops in-game. There has to be a way for players to somewhat reliably find out where to go to buy what they need. For trading, however, this is a bit of a gray area. The assumption is that having all trade-related information would cause players to focus on the most optimal routes and invalidate data running. And there is some merit to this concern, but I think that the dynamic economy should be able to prevent this. Also, with the correct implementation, data running would likely be the data source for third-party tools. So what are the other options of gathering data and how can CIG help? Well, as mentioned before, crowdsourcing is one of the options, but when the users have to input the data manually, it tends to be unreliable and not many people actually do it. From my observations on the Armory and other projects, it's about 5% of users, which won't provide a very accurate overview as the verse grows and data dynamically changes. Though I believe that this can be improved with a little bit of gamification. So can CIG do something to help? Well, they can implement the means for us to crowdsource data automatically. Here we can actually take a look at how other games do it. I specifically like the approach Frontier took with Elite Dangerous. Basically what the game does is that as you play, it saves a so-called journal file onto your computer. This file contains logs for everything that happened during your session. Information like where you traveled, what you bought, what radar contacts you had, or what planets you scanned. It also saves separate files for items and commodities that can be traded at the station or outpost you landed at. This information can be used to crowdsource data automatically. However, it does require the user to have a tool installed and running to do this. But this is a lot more convenient than having to input the data manually. In the case of Elite, this actually works out pretty well. As far as I know, there is a unified data source which most of the tools contribute to and pull data from. And this creates a very accurate and up-to-date source of data. And I believe that a similar journaling system wouldn't be too difficult for CAG to implement. Though ideally the data gathering system would require some cooperation and coordination between the community tool developers for optimal results. This option is actually pretty good in terms of balance as well. It still requires a person to go to the location to discover what's available. It essentially equals to data running but outside of the game itself. Star Citizen already likely logs player actions during a session as well as downloads data about available goods, so it shouldn't be too difficult to save this information. The more complicated thing CAG could do is implement an API that tools could query for data. This would be great because it doesn't require crowdsourcing, but it is very difficult to implement, especially considering that if you want to maintain balance, you have to limit data based on player location, which would require implementing some kind of a single sign-on solution. Technically, we already have this for the websites Spectrum and Issue Council, but that seems to be proprietary for official pages, so a solution that can be integrated by third parties would be needed. There would likely also need to be some official agreement between CAG and whoever wants to consume this API to establish terms of use and ensure that user data is not being stored. I think it is fairly unlikely for us to see this option unless CAG would be interested in developing an official companion app for Star Citizen, which I still think would be pretty useful. However, it looks like neither of these options is going to happen. CAG don't seem to be particularly interested in the fate or accuracy of third-party tools that they use to so proudly advertise. And I don't think that even a significant pressure from the backers has the ability to change this. On the other hand, I think as backers we need to make this request to make our gameplay experience better. And at the same time, as third-party developers, we should consider coming together and pooling our resources and data to create a better experience for the players who use our tools. And with that being said, that's all for tonight. What do you think? Should CAG give players the means to gather data automatically? Should players use trial and error to find what they need for themselves? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.